If you think pirates only shouted, killed, and hunted for treasure, the truth was very different. Most of the time, they simply chewed on rock-hard biscuits, patched torn clothes, and argued about who snored the loudest in the sleeping quarters. While history books often tell of bloody battles, behind the black flag and cannons lay another world of daily life. Meals, off-key songs, sea ghost legends, and storms that rocked ships like giant cradles. And here in this series, History for Sleep will let you live within those moments, gently, slowly, like a salty dream drifting across the ocean. If you wish to keep exploring the softer secrets of history, press subscribe to History for Sleep, leave a like, and share in the comments which journey you'd like to hear next. Now then, let the waves roll, the wind blow, and the story begin. You hear the waves, not roaring tsunamis like in Hollywood films, but lazy waves, rhythmic, steady, like an old fan creaking clunk, clunk, clunk. The sea whispers, it does not shout, because the sea knows. Shouting is never listened to for long. Whispering instead makes you lean in closer. You stand on the harbor. The morning wind slips into your clothes, brushing against you like a hand dipped in salt water before touching. The scent of salt, dried fish, and the sweat of those who haven't bathed in days all blend into a kind of perfume, one only the ocean can produce. If perfume companies ever bottled this smell, surely it would be sold as Eau de Pirate limited edition. You look out at the ship, not as grand as a merchant's, not as polished as a navy vessel. It looks like a wooden shack hastily built, set atop giant wheels, then left to float. And yet, strangely, the ship has its own presence. The wood creaks like an old man, hunched but stubborn. The ropes snap in the wind, like a giant string instrument no one knows how to play in tune. Historians still debate why so many left the land to become pirates. Some say poverty, some say the thirst for freedom. I think sometimes the reason was simpler, boredom with neighbors. Imagine living next to someone who brags about his rooster every morning or strums a banjo at midnight. No wonder some would rather face storms at sea. It felt more bearable. The harbor bell rings, sailors gather, a mixed crowd like the lottery draw of society. Some with thick beards, some without a full set of teeth. They carry sacks, bottles of rum, and one even hauls a drum. Yes, someone thought lugging a massive instrument onto the ocean would be useful, maybe for entertainment, maybe to scare whales. A cat jumps onto a wooden crate, meows once. It will come too. On board, cats are secret weapons against rats, but truly the cat is the only psychologist the crew has. For when everyone argues, the cat sits calmly licking its fur, reminding them some things matter more than treasure. For example, keeping one's coat spotless. You inhale deeply. The air is salty, sharp, as though the ocean insists you know who owns this house. Some will collapse from seasickness within hours. Others will adapt, treating their stomachs like endless shaking jars. You don't yet know which kind you are. Only one way to find out. Step aboard and wait for your belly's answer. A raspy voice laughs behind you. Still standing there? Get on before the ship leaves. The sea waits for no one, unless you're a dolphin. You turn and meet glittering eyes. Not friendly like welcome to the family, not hostile either. Simply the calculating gaze of those who know. One more pair of hands makes sails faster, but rum portions smaller. And so you step aboard. The ship shudders. Anchors lift. Ropes scream through pulleys. The sails swell like a belly after a heavy feast. And you now belong to the sea. Oh. But before truly setting sail, you must know, who are this ragtag crew? Why would a deserter, a carpenter, and even an unemployed monk all choose to cram onto the same ship? You've boarded, and now you look around. The crew appears like a patchwork of mismatched pieces, but somehow, together, they still form a ship. There's a giant man, muscles like coiled ropes, but teeth only enough for porridge. Rumor says he once arm wrestled 3 men at once and won. but he lost miserably at tic-tac-toe. Next to him is a wiry old man, eyes like tiny dots, but agile enough to climb the mast like a caffeinated squirrel. He claims he used to be a pickpocket. Now that skill is handy for stealing rum bottles from shipmates unnoticed. In another corner sits a reluctant musician. Hugging a guitar, he strums notes that form no song. The sound is crooked like a creaking door. But the crew likes it, not because it's good, but because it drowns out the waves' roar and their stomachs' growls. There is even a monk who left his monastery. He says he is enlightened in the sense that he can drink more rum than anyone. He still prays, but only when someone curses too crudely. Apparently, even on a pirate ship, someone must handle spiritual fire safety. Historians still debate how such chaos managed to function. Some argue it was strict rules. Others say it was the bond of sharing danger, since they had nothing left to lose. I suspect the truth was simpler. They just needed drinking buddies. And the ocean was the world's biggest tavern, only the tables never stopped rocking. One curious detail, on a pirate ship, the captain was not a king. He was more like the class monitor in gym class. The crew elected the captain, and if he became too annoying, they could replace him mid-lesson. Imagine a soccer team pausing the match, voting to fire the coach, then resuming the game. That was pirate democracy, democracy with daggers. You hear laughter, curses, and off-key singing. The crew is not a family, but they are like a crowded dormitory, where no one sleeps long because neighbors always bang drums at midnight, and strangely they find comfort in that chaos. You step closer. One man is sewing his shirt with thread as thick as rope. The needle so large you think he could use it as an emergency weapon. He looks up, grins, and says, "This shirt may tear, but as long as there's rum, life is good." Another sits carving a piece of wood into the shape of a bird. You ask why. He shrugs. To remember there are things that fly, we only know how to float. You suddenly realize this is not a band of meaningless thugs. Each one, in their crooked way, is searching for a place in the vast ocean, and so are you. The ship trembles as the anchor is raised higher. The crew begins chanting, pulling ropes together. The chant is not steady like an army drill. It is messy, broken, like a choir where everyone sings their own song. And yet, strangely, the ship still moves. You hear the wind fill the sails. The ropes quiver like giant strings. The wood groans and creaks, and you feel this ship, with its ragged but stubborn crew, is truly ready to set sail. But before the journey becomes real, you must know one thing. This ship is not just a vessel. It is home, fortress, and an empty belly always demanding food. Every creak, every damp plank will become part of your new life. You stand on deck and look around. This is not just a ship. From now on, it is your home. A home that rocks, creaks, and sometimes might throw you into the sea if you're not careful. A pirate ship is not as grand as a merchant ship full of gold, nor as disciplined as a royal warship. It is more like an old boarding house, patched from recycled wood, then set afloat with the hope of, let's pray it floats. And miraculously, it does. You pace a few steps. The deck creaks, as if complaining. Another one stepping on me. The scents of pine tar, salt, rust, and dried fish mingle together. If you called this the signature pirate smell, air freshener companies would sue you immediately. You touch the ropes, rough, stiff, salt-crusted until your hand turns pale. These ropes don't just hold sails, they are also free gym equipment. Anyone wanting bigger arms can climb the mast, no membership needed, only fee, the risk of a broken neck. At the bow sits a cannon, paint peeling, iron rusted, but still caressed by sailors like a pet. One says, "It's not pretty, but it can roar." Sound familiar? Yes, it could describe any pirate crew as well. Historians still debate, were pirate ships really better than merchant ships? Merchants were big, heavy, slow, like an old turtle on holiday. Navy ships were massive but lumbering like nobles after a feast. And pirate ships? Small, fast, and dangerous, like a hungry cat after morning coffee. You climb below deck, the air changes. Dark, damp, cramped. This is the sleeping quarters. To call them beds is too fancy. They are hammocks strung side to side. Each hammock like a cocoon, with sailors curled up like larvae waiting to become butterflies. But instead of butterflies, by morning they only become tired sailors. The smell below deck? You guessed it. A cocktail of sweat, oil lamp smoke, and snores. Snores are a kind of smell too, you know, a sound smell, and it weighs just as heavy as dried fish. In one corner sits a long, rickety table. This is the living room, dining room, and courtroom all in one. On a ship, every space must serve many roles. If you see someone eating here, wait a little. Soon it might host a meeting to divide loot, or even a trial for a traitor. Food and justice sometimes share the same table. You try sitting on a chair. It wobbles as if it will snap any moment. But no, it's only teasing. Ship chairs have their own personalities, always pretending to be broken, only to prove strangely durable. Perhaps because they're used to holding sailors after every drunken night. You look up. On the crossbeam, an oil lamp sways. Its pale yellow glow flickers, enough to see, never enough to brighten. Each lamp is a tiny flame fighting the dark and the sneaky ocean breeze slipping through the planks. At the back of the hold stands the fresh water barrel. Not much. Fresh water is worth more than gold. They sip carefully, wash sparingly, and rarely ever bathe. You think of this and suddenly understand. The reason sailors are so often drunk may be simple. Rum is cleaner than water. You return to the deck. There the captain stands, gazing into the distance. He's not always stern, but even while chewing a hard biscuit, the way he chews carries the air of, I am the one responsible here. A few seabirds circle. Waves lap gently, ropes clatter against each other, all weaving into a soft melody the ship plays for itself. You realize this ship, with all its groans, musty smells, and fluttering sails, is truly alive. It breathes with the wind, complains with the waves, and carries you and the crew toward the horizon. But to live together on such a floating home, everyone must follow a law. A law not written by kings, but by bearded men with missing teeth. You sit on deck, watching the noisy, laughing crew, and wonder, how can such chaos live together? The answer is law. Not the king's law, not the Navy's law, but their own. On a pirate ship, laws were written by rough hands, sometimes stained with rum. But do not dismiss them. Those crumpled sheets were the glue that held the crew together. Without them, the crew would scatter faster than a biscuit dropped in seawater. Historians still debate, should this be called democracy or organized chaos? Democracy, because captains were elected. Chaos, because a captain could be deposed right after lunch if someone disliked their portion. Imagine a company where the CEO could be replaced the moment the coffee ran out. That was a pirate ship. In the law, one sacred rule: loot must be shared fairly. Whoever joined the voyage got a share. The captain, of course, received more, but not too much. He was no emperor. He was more like the leader of a karaoke group, allowed to hold the microphone longer, but if he sang badly, the group could snatch it back. There were rules about time: no fighting while working. If you must fight, wait until after working hours, after sails are tied and guns cleaned. On land, they call it a civilized office. At sea, it was civilized fighting. The law also forbade cheating at gambling. Anyone caught was punished severely. For sailors, cheating at games was worse than losing teeth. You can live without teeth, but not without trust when dealing cards. You hear someone read the code aloud, a raspy voice, slow, trying to sound serious. But within the words, you sense humor. For example, the law might say, no women allowed on board, yet someone had scribbled in faint ink, "Unless she's a good cook." Pirate law, like the pirates themselves, was both serious and flexible. During meetings, sailors had the right to speak. Everyone had a voice. Sometimes even a drunk would stagger up, ranting about salted meat portions. The crew listened, nodded, and finally gave him another cup of rum to sit down. Democracy sometimes worked in the simplest way: let the opponent drink. You smile, realizing pirate law, though rough, carried a clear spirit, fairness, not because they were angels, but because without fairness the ship would collapse, and no one wants chaos inside a house drifting at sea. You sit silently, the breeze brushes past. Far off, the sails billow. The waves beat like a clock, reminding you that this law, simple yet firm, kept the crew alive together and let them share rare moments of joy upon the ocean. Speaking of joy, you will soon realize one of the most important moments in a sailor's life is not battle, not gold, but meals. You hear spoons tapping wooden bowls, clunk, clunk, clunk. A simple sound, but to sailors it is as important as church bells, for it signals mealtime. Meals on a pirate ship are nothing like feasts in castles. No long white tablecloths, no steaming roasts. Instead, you have biscuits as hard as cobblestones, salted meat as briny as tears, and rum so strong it feels distilled straight from despair. You hold a biscuit. It is not soft, not buttery. It is hard, dry, and if you drop it, it hits the floor with a clack, no different from a pebble. Some joke, if we run out of bullets, we can throw these at enemies. Indeed, they serve as both food and potential weapons. Salted meat is different. So salty it feels as though it wants to drain every drop of water from your body. One bite and you'll be thirsty all day. 2 bites and you'll wonder if you've licked the sea itself. Yet in that harsh salt lies comfort. It endures. Sailors know that through storms, salted meat remains loyal, never spoiling, never leaving them. Historians still debate. Did pirates really eat worse than Navy sailors? Some say yes, others no. I think, does it matter? Both gnawed biscuits like stones. Both drank alcohol instead of water. The only difference was that the Navy had neat uniforms, while pirates wore torn trousers for freer bellies. Sometimes, if lucky enough to dock at an island or seize a merchant ship, meals included fresh fish, fruit, or something called a luxury item, say a whole onion. Yes, truly, an onion could make the crew cheer like children at a birthday cake. Picture 30 men fighting to bite into one raw onion. That was pirate fine dining. But the most important part was not the food, but the ritual of eating. They sat around the long, rickety table, each with a bowl, and began telling stories. Some of love, usually failures. Some of battles, usually exaggerated. And some simply chewed, tapping spoons on bowls now and then to show approval. You hear raspy laughter, rum pouring, biscuits clattering to the floor. These sounds strangely create warmth. Not family warmth, but the kind of student dorm warmth where everyone suffers together so they bond. One sailor raises his rum and shouts, "For the sea, for freedom, and for salted meat that still holds." Everyone clinks cups, some so hard that rum splashes out. No one minds. At sea, rum is like waves, always spilling over. You sip rum. It burns your throat, fiery, as if drinking diluted flame. But then a sweetness lingers, easing you. Rum is the cure for everything: cold, fatigue, fear, and sometimes toothache. A pirate doctor once said, "Rum does not heal, but it makes the patient forget he is sick." After meals, pirates often sang, not to sound good, to feel good. One voice raspy, another shrill like a cat stepped on its tail. Yet together they made a warm chorus, rising with the waves. You sit and listen, drowsiness washing over. Perhaps not just from the singing, but from the rhythm itself. Waves, creaking wood, spoons gently tapping. The sea lulls you with its own meal. Chai. And when the meal ends, you realize, at sea, happiness is simple. A hard biscuit, a sip of rum, and laughter around a wooden table. Together, these are the seasoning of survival. But meals take only a small part of the long day. Sailors must also work, sing, play, and sometimes sit watching waves with nothing else to do. Morning on a pirate ship does not begin with an alarm, but with snores. Loud, steady, sometimes harmonizing with the waves. An unwilling choir with some singing bass, some tenor, and of course one singing far too loud, shaking the whole cabin. As the sun rises, orange light spills across the sails, waking those still asleep. They rub their eyes, clamber out of hammocks. Some crawl up to the deck, faces twisted like students at 8 a.m. class after staying up until 3 watching football. On most days, ship life is not glamorous. Battles, treasure hunts, or merchant chases are rare. Most of the time, sailors do chores. Someone scrubs the deck, broom in hand, sweeping away the strangest dust in the world, a mix of salt, dried fish, and sand from their own shoes. Another stitches torn sails, each needle so large it could pass as a crude weapon. Someone else patches trousers, holes so wide you wonder if the pants are still useful, or just souvenirs of fabric. Historians still debate, was sailor life boring? Some say extremely, to the point where men played games like Count the Waves. Others argue boredom at sea was still better because at least the wind was cooler than on land. Personally, I think, if you spend all day scraping barnacles off a hull, whether boring or not depends only on how much rum you have left. Beyond chores, there are games, dice, cards, sometimes pebbles for chess pieces. Some sailors were so devoted that they swore if they died, their souls would haunt the deck of cards to deal more fairly. Imagine a deck that shuffled itself, terrifying, yes, but for pirates, perhaps convenient. Music was present too. Someone strums a crooked tune, notes blown away by the wind. Another taps a spoon on a bowl. The whole ship becomes a ragtag orchestra with the waves as conductor. The songs had no clear lyrics but worked like morning coffee, shaking off fatigue, lifting spirits from boredom. And sometimes, no one did anything. They lay on deck, eyes half shut, listening to waves. Some yawned, some scratched beards, some took the chance to scrape what teeth they had left. That lazy air was like a summer noon, when all too tired to argue, they simply listened to the breeze. You sit on the deck, feeling the sun-warmed wood, the faint scent of salt, the steady waves, the sails puffing above, all like a massive lullaby machine. Anyone who dozes off here will wake sunburned crimson, but perhaps think it worth it. Now and then, sailors tell old stories, loves left on land, forced conscription, storms nearly fatal. They tell them plainly, without drama, because at sea, memory itself was a kind of entertainment. And you, listening, may drift asleep without noticing, for sailor tales flow as steadily as waves. You come to understand, pirate life was not only daggers, cannons, and treasure. It was also ordinary days, slow and repeating. Days of scrubbing decks, mending clothes, hearing bad songs, sipping thin rum, then lying back to watch clouds. And it is these ordinary days that linger longest in memory. But within that calm routine, one thing always quickened sailor hearts: the flag. A piece of cloth snapping in the wind, marked with skull and crossbones, announcing to the world, we are no harmless merchants. One afternoon, the wind grows stronger. On the mast, a black cloth bursts open, fluttering. You look up and see it, the pirate flag. Not a national flag, not a royal flag, the banner of those belonging to no one but themselves. Black cloth with a skull grinning, a grin far from friendly. You wonder, why a skull? Why not something gentler, say a cheerful dolphin? Historians still debate. Some say the skull warned, "Surrender now, or we'll turn you into one." Others say simpler, pirates were not skilled artists. A skull was easiest to draw, a circle with two dark holes anyone could manage. But the black flag carried strange power. Its mere appearance on the horizon made merchants tremble. Imagine, you row peacefully on the sea, then far ahead, a black banner charges toward you. It's like strolling in a park and spotting a group in leather jackets, tattooed, sprinting your way. You don't need to know their intent, only that running is wise. In truth, each crew had variations. Some added an hourglass, warning, "Your time is short." Some added a bleeding heart, like a gloomy love poem flying in the sky. One captain even drew a skeleton holding a wine glass. The message was clear. "We may kill you, but first let's drink." You stand still, watching the flag fly. The wind lashes it, snapping loudly. That flutter is a slow drumbeat declaring the ship sails not for trade, but for prey. Sailors view the flag differently, some proud, like donning a uniform, some relieved, since it frightens enemies into surrender, saving gunpowder, and some see it simply as an oversized tablecloth hoisted out of boredom. You press your hand against the mast. The wood is hot beneath the sun, trembling with the wind. You imagine, if you were a merchant and saw this flag, your heart would drop, and indeed, often the flag alone won half the battle. No need to fight, only to frighten, like dogs barking louder than biting, except here, sometimes they bite too. Historians still argue, did the flag truly make pirates more fearsome? But watching the way sailors lift their heads, you know, to them the flag is more than a symbol. It is pride. It says, "We do not hide. We do not pretend to be anyone else. This is us. If you dislike it, sorry, but we don't care." You sit on the deck, watching the flag fly at sunset. The sky shifts to orange, light spilling across the waves. The black flag against a blazing red sky, terrifying, yet strangely beautiful. It reminds you that pirate life is not always laughter and rum. Sometimes it is also battle. And you know, that moment will come. Not immediately, but one day when sails strain, guns are loaded, and the crew stares at each other in silence. You imagine pirate battles are always noisy, like in the movies. Cannons roaring, men screaming, smoke choking the air. In truth, the most memorable part is before the first shot. The ship cuts through waves, closing in on its target. The merchant vessel ahead is like a large fish, swimming lazily, unaware a ragged wildcat is stalking it. The wind fills the sails, but on deck no one speaks loudly. Silence, thick as a winter blanket weighing on every shoulder. The crew begins to prepare. Some check ropes, some polish guns, some heave cannons to the gunwales. Metal clinks, wood groans. You hear every small sound, each one making your heart beat quicker. A sailor tries to joke to break the tension. He mutters, "Hey, if I die, make sure my share of rum goes to the cat." Soft laughter ripples, then vanishes. Silence returns, swallowing sound as quickly as the sea swallows stones. Historians still debate, were pirates brave or simply reckless with no way back? Some say it was heroism. Others say, if the choice is prison or fighting, who wouldn't fight? I think perhaps they were like students before exams, afraid but forced to act because skipping was never an option. You see the cannons, black, heavy, huge, polished as though they were treasured instruments. For the crew, cannons are the ship's lead singers, while all the curses and shouts are just backup vocals. Each man holds a weapon, dagger, axe, musket, none matching, like a cosplay performance, each in his own costume, yet all playing the same scene. You smell gunpowder, salt, sweat, all mixing into one perfume, ode to sea battle. If bottled, only the crew themselves would buy it. You look out, the gap between ships shrinks. Surely the merchants have seen the black flag by now. Perhaps they panic, perhaps they pray. but you hear only the wind in your ears, cold, salty. A sailor whispers beside you, "Don't worry, if they fear us enough to surrender, not a drop of blood will spill." You nod, but you know the sea promises nothing. This moment stretches endlessly, like the pause before a singer strikes the first note of a concert. The whole hall holds its breath, waiting for music. Only here, the music will be cannon fire, and the audience may die before the encore. You see the captain step forward. He does not shout, does not roar. He only raises his hand, slowly, signaling, and the crew, almost as one, tenses. No more chatter, no more laughter. Every gaze fixes on the enemy. You feel your heart beating with the waves, faster, louder. An invisible drum pounds across the ship. And then, as fate decides, the silence ends. A thunderous boom, smoke rising, and the sea awakens. You hear an explosion. Not the cheerful crackle of festival fireworks. No, this one is heavy, deep, strong enough to shake your chest. The cannon has fired. White smoke billows, carried by the sea breeze. The acrid bite of gunpowder stings your nose, your eyes water, as if you were chopping onions right there on the deck. Every time a cannon fires, it startles not only the enemy, but even the sailor who pulled the trigger, like taking a gulp of rum far too strong. The roars follow one another. This side fires, that side answers. The sea becomes a drum stage, the waves an audience, and everyone pounds their drums, a little too hard. You watch a cannonball screech through the air, splash into the water with a burst of foam. Some shots hit, some miss, but to the crew, even a miss is worth cheering. At least it proves the cannon still works, not just a rusty barrel on wheels. Historians still argue, were pirate battles truly brutal? Some records say every clash was drenched in blood. Others claim many ended quickly, with just a few shots before surrender, because no one actually wanted to sink. I think it was more like a market quarrel. Lots of shouting, but mostly to see who could scare whom better. You feel the wind whip your face, salty and sharp, mixed with the stinging smoke and the searing heat of the cannon's mouth. Your ears ring, but your heartbeat keeps pounding, fast then slow, like the uneven rhythm of an amateur band. Through the haze, sailors rush about. Some reload, some light fuses, some scream, for no reason at all. Screaming simply to remind themselves they're alive. One yells so loud he drowns out the cannon. If there were a contest for who can outshout heavy artillery, pirates would win every time. A shot lands on the enemy's mast. Wood explodes with a crack, fragments flying. Your crew cheers, fists in the air, like soccer fans when their team scores. Except here, the ball is a splintering beam. You glance at the other deck. Enemy sailors stand pale, like fish dragged from the sea. They stare, panicked, at your black flag snapping in the wind. In smoke and fire, the flag looks like a giant ghost, grinning. A sailor claps your shoulder. Don't worry, if they're smart, they'll surrender soon. Fighting is exhausting, and we don't have enough biscuits to waste on a long battle. You chuckle. True enough, battles are not always about honor or glory. Often they are economics. Cannonballs cost money. Repairs cost money. Better if the other side gives up. It saves everyone a fortune. Smoke drifts, guns thunder, but you grow used to it. The rhythm of the cannons becomes a strange lullaby. Boom, pause, boom. Like an offbeat drum at an outdoor concert, but instead of a headache, it lulls your mind into a dreamlike haze. You sit against a wooden barrel, letting the smoke swirl. Heat, salt, suffocation, all blending together. And you think, naval battle is not endless chaos. It is alternation, noise and silence, smoke and wind, just like life, storms then calm. And then, from afar you see it, a white flag. The merchant ship raises it, trembling. They surrender. Your crew bursts out cheering, but the cheer does not last long. They know it is only another day among many. You inhale deeply. The scent of gunpowder lingers, but within it is the sweetness of victory. Not a glorious victory, but a practical one. Enough for more rum, more biscuits, and a few new stories to tell at dinner. And that is when the next step begins. When smoke clears, when the cannons fall silent, the crew sits together, eyes fixed on what matters most, the division of spoils. Gunpowder haze drifts away. The sea resumes its steady breath, as if no battle had just happened. Only your crew remains, gathered around wooden barrels, eyes bright as children waiting for birthday gifts. The fight is over, and now begins the solemn ritual, sharing the prize. From the surrendered merchant ship come barrels of rum, bags of silver, rolls of cloth, and a strange armchair. Perhaps the merchant captain carried it to look impressive. Now it sits proudly on a pirate deck, the most luxurious decoration they've ever had. Historians still argue, were pirates truly more fair than the Navy? Records show that on pirate ships, the division of loot was strict, even admirable. Every sailor got a share. The captain took more, the quartermaster too, but no one was forgotten. Quite unlike the Royal Navy, where sailors often received a pat on the back and better luck next time. You watch the scene unfold, coins and silver spill across the deck, glittering in sunlight. No one rushes to snatch them. Instead, each item is recorded, then divided by rule. The order is so strict it feels like a union meeting, except this union carries daggers and muskets. One sailor hugs a bag of silver to his chest, grinning with his single tooth. Another clutches a rum bottle, raising it high as though winning a prize. Someone else takes a roll of cloth, boasting about making a new shirt, though it will almost certainly rip within a week. Not every division is perfectly fair. Sometimes a man complains, "Why's my share smaller?" The usual answer, "Because you dozed off while the cannons fired." Pirate fairness has its own logic, rarely written but always understood. You touch the silver coin in your hand, cold, bright, heavier than expected. You spin it between your fingers, hearing the soft chime as it taps against another. That sound is as sweet as payday bells, but at sea, sweeter still than the waves. Some sailors don't care for gold, only rum. Others hoard every coin, dreaming of one day buying a small house ashore. And some dream of nothing. Loot is only a ticket for a few more weeks, food, drink, drifting on. For now, fatigue and smoke are forgotten. They laugh, they toast, they flaunt their spoils like festival gifts. The deck becomes a market fair, noise flooding the space where cannon smoke once hung. But joy is brief. After the sharing, the drinking, the laughter, the crew will head to shore. To taverns cramped and noisy, where fish stench mixes with cheap music, and where treasure vanishes faster than they believed possible. After many days at sea, the ship finally makes port. The harbor rises before you, not quiet like a painting, but loud, filthy, and strangely alluring. The first thing you smell, fish. Overpowering, relentless, drowning out every other scent. Woven into it are the fumes of spilled rum, smoke from kitchens, and the bodies of hundreds pressed together. If bottled, the label would read, "Harbor Scent, Unforgettable Edition." The sounds are no less chaotic, fishmongers shouting, blacksmiths hammering, fiddles squeaking, and of course, the laughter of sailors just off a voyage, all layered together into a symphony one Beethoven would refuse to conduct. You follow the crew into a tavern. The wooden door creaks open, revealing another world, dim light, off-key fiddle, sticky tables, and packed bodies. Not a church, but sacred nonetheless, for here lies the holiest thing, rum. A mug is set before you. You sip. The taste burns your throat, sharp and strong, like a liquid punch. And strangely, it eases you. Sailors drink not just to be drunk, but to forget the salt, forget the monotony, forget the battles. Historians still argue, how long did sailors take to spend their earnings? Some records say weeks, others days, and some admit plainly, sometimes only hours. Indeed, spoils won with blood and smoke often vanish into cheap music and crowded rum. In the tavern's corner, you see a sailor bragging about his victory. He claims he shot down 3 men with nothing but a glare. Another interrupts, insisting he only shot a barrel. The whole table bursts into laughter. No one cares what's true. Ashore, truth matters less than a good story. You also notice some sailors sitting silent, clutching mugs, eyes distant. Perhaps they think of home, perhaps of the silver already spent, or the silver they'll never keep. Amid the noise, their silence rings clear, like a wrong note in the harmony. Outside, the harbor bustles on. Children scamper after sailors, begging for coins. Vendors cry their prices, hands busy wrapping dried fish, cloth, or trinkets everyone swears are essential for life at sea. And the sailors, in their frenzy, buy it all, though they know most of it will be forgotten in some corner of the hold within days. You step to the quay, watching waves slap the rocks. Out there, the ship lies at anchor, patient and still. In stark contrast to the chaos of the port, it waits like a giant beast at rest. You realize the shore is only a pause. The pirate's true home is still the ship. But port life is never all peace. Beneath the music and rum, seeds of conflict always lurk. Jealousy, betrayal, schemes. And once the drink flows, those seeds flare like fire in dry grass. You've seen the noisy harbor, where rum flows like rivers and coins vanish like minnows in a shark's mouth. Yet behind the laughter, cracks form, and on a pirate ship, those cracks have a name: betrayal. Betrayal isn't always grand. Sometimes it begins with something small, a share missing, a stolen mug of rum, a jealous glance. But in the cramped world of a ship, small things swell quickly, like a herring forgotten in the hold. Within days, everyone notices. Historians still argue, were pirates more loyal or more treacherous than other men? Some say they bonded by sharing danger. Others laugh, bonded until more gold arrives. I think the crew was like a group of gamblers, peaceful until someone lost too much then. The table flipped. You imagine mutiny, not a grand movie scene, but a school reunion turned argument. One sailor rises shouting, "You didn't divide fairly." Another slams the table. "You drank all the rum and dare complain." And within minutes, daggers flash, not for glory, but because last night's stew was too salty. The captain, though elected, is not immune. If too harsh or too weak, the crew replaces him quickly. No parliament, no official vote, just shouts and fists. Pirate democracy, fast, simple, painful. Some betrayals cut deeper, a man whispering to the Navy for pardon, another hiding loot. When found, punishments are harsh, lashes, marooning, or the legendary walk on the plank. You've heard the legend: a wooden board, slow steps, waves below, sharks circling, crew cheering as if watching theater. Historians still debate if it was common or just fiction, but in your mind the image is vivid. You see it clearly. In the pirate world, loyalty and betrayal weave together. The man drinking and singing with you today might stab your back tomorrow, and the rival of yesterday might be your ally when storms demand survival. On deck, the wind still blows, sails still strain, but between creaks and waves you hear other sounds, whispers, mutters, suspicion. It slips everywhere, like wind through cracks. And within that fragility, one thing softens men: friendship, love, and rare bonds. On a pirate ship, fragile as an old hammock, yet enough to carry them through storms. You think pirates only fight, drink rum, and shout? Not quite. On this rocking wooden vessel, beside daggers and cannons, there is room for feeling. Friendship is not forged with grand vows, but in small acts. When a sailor shares his last biscuit, hard as stone, yet precious as gold. Or when someone gives up his hammock corner, so you sleep where rain leaks less. Ashore, that's small. At sea, it's proof of great friendship. Some friendships grow so close you can't tell belongings apart. One drinks half the bottle, the other the rest. One spins a tall tale, the other nods along, even if the tale is so wild no whale in a hat would believe it. In this harsh world, you don't need someone to understand, only someone willing to listen. Historians still debate, did love truly exist on pirate ships? Some records speak of female pirates, like Anne Bonny or Mary Read, fighting alongside men. Other tales hint at quiet same-sex bonds between sailors. But every record agrees on one thing. Love, if it existed, was rare and fragile, like a flower clinging to a cliff in the sea wind. Picture this. In the dark hold, two sailors sit side by side, sharing a single biscuit, listening silently to the waves. No music, no candles, no flowers. Yet in the rhythm of the sea, they find what every human seeks, the warmth of another. Sometimes affection was shown with small tokens. A rusted ring, a strip of cloth tied to a wrist, a dagger carved with shaky letters. No one laughed because all knew the sea takes much, but allows men to keep a few memories. Of course, not every bond was romantic. Sometimes it looked like a comedy. Two sailors shouting, cursing, pounding the table, and hours later singing together with arms around each other, like an old married couple, bickering all day, yet still picking fish bones for each other at night. You glance around the deck, a few sailors hum quietly, others lie still, staring at the stars. In such a cramped world where everything is shared, bowls, hammocks, even breath, finding a small private corner with someone is a miracle. And you realize pirates were no different from anyone else. They too needed a hand to hold, a knowing glance, a promise, even if that promise lasted only until the next storm. At sea, affection was no luxury. It was fuel, keeping men upright against the wind. Yeah. And like every harsh community, when hearts needed something to cling to, they reached not only for friendship and love, but also for legends and superstition. Sometimes faith in the unseen was stronger than faith in the anchor. You thought pirates were hard men, trusting only in daggers, gunpowder, and rum? Oh no. They carried a treasury of superstitions so rich that if someone opened a fortune-telling booth on deck, it would never lack customers. First came wind and waves. Sailors believed whistling on deck summoned storms, so if you whistled a merry tune, the whole crew might glare as if you'd just invited sharks to dinner. Yet slurping porridge loudly, sounding like the wind, was fine. Clearly, the sea had its own sense of taste. Then ship names. Every vessel needed a name, and it could not be changed. Renaming a ship was like renaming a cat. It would ignore you, and so would the ship, by abandoning you in a storm. Some swore Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge endured because its name was long and fierce. Had it been called Little Cutie, it would have sunk day one. Historians still argue, how superstitious were sailors really? Records say dolphins circling the ship were lucky, sharks a herald of death. Some even swore they saw mermaids singing, perhaps just sleep-starved hallucinations, or perhaps a very off-key seal. Another belief, women on board brought bad luck. Yet, paradoxically, famous women pirates fought as fiercely as any man. The only conclusion, superstition was like village traffic laws, real enough but strength granted exceptions. Sailors feared Friday the 13th, though they had no pretty calendars. They marked time with moon, stars, and gut feelings that often said, "Don't sail today, my stomach aches." That too was prophecy, just without the crystal ball. You listen as they tell legends. Some whisper of the Flying Dutchman, a ghost ship doomed to wander forever. They murmur low, eyes distant. Oil lamps flicker, waves pound, and you feel an invisible ship gliding right alongside. Sailors wore charms, a scrap of wood, a hold coin, a feather. None mocked, for at sea, anything that eased the mind was priceless. If a frayed string around the neck helped someone sleep, then that string was worth more than gold. And you realize superstition, legend, ritual, these were how sailors faced their smallness. Against the vast ocean, their ship was no more than a grain of rice in a giant bowl of soup. To resist despair, men clung to stories and omens, like clinging to a floating spar. But then came days when no charm, no tale could soothe. When sky darkened, wind howled, thunder cracked, and the whole sea roared like a beast in fury. On such days, no superstition could hide the truth. Man is far too small against nature. You had grown used to steady waves, flapping sails, laughter of sailors. But one day, the sky shifts. Gray, heavy. Not the soft gray of a blanket, but the stern gray of a teacher's eyes when you forget your homework. The wind begins to scream through the rigging. At first it sounds like a cheerful whistle, then longer, sharper, becoming the endless cry of someone who never tires. Clouds gather, swirling. Waves rise, no longer gentle as a cat licking its paw, but pounding like a neighbor hammering on your door to demand rent. Historians still debate, were sailors truly afraid of storms? Of course they were. Who wouldn't fear when their home turned into a toy in a giant bowl of water? But they hid that fear with songs, with curses, and by tying ropes around their waists so the wind wouldn't snatch them away like shirts off a clothesline. You stand on deck, wind slapping your face, salty, stinging. The ship tilts, boards soaked. Each step feels like training on a giant trampoline. Sailors dash about, trying to reef the sails. Shouts rise, tangled with the gale like a choir hopelessly off-key. A great wave crashes. Water pours across the deck, icy, heavy. You shiver. This wave isn't a soft pillow. It's a whole wet blanket hurled straight into you. Oil lamps swing, their light flickering. In the half-dark, faces tighten with worry. Some grip ropes, some mutter prayers. One man yells, "If I survive this, I swear I'll quit rum for a week." Laughter erupts, even in the storm, a promise so unlikely even the sea must laugh. You smell the mix, salt, sweat, and fear. No shop sells this scent, and no one would ever bottle it, but it clings to every breath. The ship shudders. The mast groans like an old man's aching knees. Each crack of timber tightens your chest. You think, if the ship splits, you'll be nothing but drifting splinters. Against the Black Sea, man is smaller than dust. And yet, amid the chaos, there's a strange beauty. Lightning rips the sky, blinding white, etching waves into sharp relief. Each bolt like a mad photographer snapping images you'll never forget. The crew cling together, hauling lines, tying knots. Motions repeated, desperate but necessary. And you sense a bond, no more strong or weak, braggart or quiet. In a storm, all are simply human, small, fragile, together. A sailor slumps beside you, panting, chuckling hoarsely. "A storm like this, the fish must think we're mad to sail. At least we've got an audience." You laugh. Yes, if fish had wits, they'd be betting on whether the ship flips. You close your eyes, listening to the storm's rhythm. Wind shrieks, waves crash, wood groans. A fierce music, yet strangely lulling. In chaos, the beat is steady, hypnotic. You can't tell whether it's your heart pounding or the sea itself. Both merge into one. And then, at last, the storm eases. Like a furious man spent of anger, now slinking away in fatigue. Sky brightens, waves subside, wind weakens. The ship remains, soaked, creaking, but alive. Sailors glance at each other, laughing raggedly. They survived. You understand, the storm is not just enemy, it is lesson. It reminds that men do not command the sea, only learn to live with it. And those who endure a storm will remember forever. After the storm, sailors turn to their favorite comfort, dreams of treasure. At once real and unreal, close at hand and impossibly far. After the storm, sailors often turn to tales easier to swallow than salt and fury, and no tale is sweeter than the legend of buried treasure. You hear sailors whisper of heavy wooden chests packed with gold, silver, gems, and pearls as big as eggs. Every story begins with a map, yellowed paper, crooked lines, strange dots, and of course, one giant X. X marks the spot. Simple enough for children to grasp, dreamlike enough for grown men to believe. Historians still debate, did pirates truly bury treasure? Some say, no one had time, gold was spent at once for pleasure. Others admit, maybe a few did, but rarely. Truth or not, the legend endures because it is too beautiful to discard. Think about it. If pirates only squandered their loot in taverns and forgot it by morning, the tale would be dull. But add the mystery of hidden treasure, and suddenly the whole era feels like a novel. Who wouldn't like to think that somewhere out there, a chest of gold still waits to be unearthed? You imagine holding such a map. The paper brittle, corners singed, smelling of damp. The lines crooked, as if drawn drunk. Mountains like potatoes, rivers like snakes. And that bold X in the corner calling, dig here if you live long enough. Sailors argue endlessly. One swears he saw a real treasure map. Another insists he once dug up a chest, only to find sand and seashells. But it doesn't matter. For them, the search itself is worth more than the finding. Like buying a lottery ticket, you know the odds, but your heart still races when you hold it. Some nights, under the moon, stories fly. Treasure lies on the eastern isle, but cursed. Another interrupts. No, the western isle. Look for the leaning palm and parrots that swear like drunks. So the imaginary maps grow wilder, until if drawn, they would cover the whole ocean. You listen, eyelids heavy. The rhythm of waves and the sailors' murmurs turn the legend into a lullaby. In the haze, you see yourself digging sand, touching the cold lid of a chest, opening it to find nothing but rock-hard biscuits. Yes, even in dreams, pirate treasure often turns into food. And you realize the true treasure of pirates was never under sand, but in these moments of dreaming, when men forgot the salt, the hunger, the cold, and let imagination carry them beyond the horizon. But every dream fades. The golden age of piracy did not last. As navies grew stronger, as law tightened, treasure itself became the past. You've heard of treasure, of black flags snapping, of cannons roaring. But like every wave, the pirate age receded. In the 17th and early 18th century, the sea was an open feast. Anyone with ship, gun, courage, or at least rum could join. But by mid-18th century, the feast was cut short by the knock of neighborhood watch. And that watch was the European Navy, stronger than ever. Historians still debate the cause. Some say the rise of British and Spanish fleets. Others say commerce grew too important, forcing states to sweep away the rats of the sea. Still others laugh. Pirates simply drank too much rum to keep their empire afloat. Imagine it. Once, a black flag alone made merchants surrender, but when warships twice the size, with triple the guns and 4 times the crew appeared, the black flag no longer frightened. It was like waving a pocket knife at a tank. Crews scattered, some were captured, hanged in ports as warnings. Some surrendered, begging pardon, turning into quiet fishermen. Others fled, hiding on faraway isles, telling grand tales of past glory like old men boasting about fish bigger than houses. You hear the sea whisper, no longer of treasure, but of loss. The wind carries a sad fragrance like smoke drifting after a feast. In taverns, old sailors mutter, once a wave of the hand brought gold and silver, now only salt and hair and scars in heart. The young half believe, half scoff, thinking it bragging. But you and I know, in every boast, a grain of truth remains. The sorrow of decline is not losing treasure, but losing the taste of freedom. At sea, there was no king, no court, only wind and wave. When navies closed in, that freedom dissolved like foam. And pirates, once wanderers, had only 3 paths left: death, surrender, or disappearance. You watch sunset fall across the sea. Golden light spills, the black flag flutters one last time, not fierce but ghostly, reminding that once these men ruled the horizon. But even after that age has passed, the waves still hold memory. And in the hearts of those who once lived as pirates, that memory does not vanish. It lingers as longing, half truth, half dream, retold to anyone willing to listen. You sit by the shore hearing the surf. No more cannons, no more howling storms, only the steady rhythm, hush, crash, hush, crash, like the weary heartbeat of the ocean, patient and eternal. Pirates, with their black flags and rum, now live only in tales. But if you listen closely, within the waves, you still hear their echoes. A hoarse laugh somewhere, heavy footsteps across a deck, the tap of spoons on bowls, clink, clink, keeping time for a forgotten song. An old man in a harbor tavern claims he once sailed with Blackbeard, once buried treasure on a nameless isle. Perhaps he tells the truth, perhaps it's just the rum, but truth is not the point. The light in his eyes as he speaks is. That is the light of memory, more precious than gold. Historians still debate, did pirates leave anything lasting? Some say only scars on merchants and headaches for navies. Others insist they left behind legend, the black flag, the dream of absolute freedom. I think sometimes leaving behind a dream is greater than leaving behind gold. You close your eyes and imagine standing once more upon the deck, wind blowing, sails straining, the flag snapping. Around you, sailors laughing, singing, even if off-key. Ahead, the endless horizon, opening like a door that never shuts. A moment of freedom, a moment no king could buy. You open your eyes, only sand remains, only waves, yet the echo lingers in your chest. For pirates, in truth, were never just grizzled men with knives, but symbols of the yearning to slip free of chains, to live by one's own heartbeat. A cat meows somewhere on the pier. Perhaps it is descended from the countless cats that once sailed with pirates, hunting rats in dark holds, watching men laugh, cry, betray, love, and now it merely licks its fur indifferent, a reluctant witness to history. You smile faintly. Perhaps it is true, the history of pirates is not only in books, but in waves, in the faraway gaze of old sailors, and in your own imagination. You listen, waves beat again, hush, crash, like an ancient lullaby, reminding you that every voyage, glorious or fading, becomes memory in the end. And memory, if you sit still to hear it, will rock you gently to sleep. Asleep salted, with rum on the tongue, hoarse laughter in the air, and a black flag flying at the edge of the horizon. You exhale softly, letting the waves carry you far, far away. The waves still beat, gently now, slowly now, as if there had never been knives, cannons, betrayal, or treasure, only the eternal whisper of the sea. We have just walked together through the life of pirates, from the first creaking deck beneath your feet, to the dull but joyful days, the furious storms, and the unreachable dream of buried gold. But you know, this is not only history, it is a dream, a history that lulls, a dream you may return to any time. Simply close your eyes and let the waves, the wind, and the voice of the tale carry you away. And if this journey has softened you, made you smile, or simply helped you drift towards sleep, then leave behind a small footprint. Subscribe to History for Sleep so you won't miss the next journeys through history, where the past becomes a hammock and every story a lullaby. Leave a like so the waves know you have smiled. And share in the comments which voyage in history you would like to hear next, told in this voice. The waves beat again, hush, crash, an endless music lulling you to rest. May your sleep be deep, and until our next journey, together with History for Sleep,